You see my screen now?
Yes.
Nice. Faisal Adghither, are you there?
Yes.
Nice. Okay. So first of all, we are going to go
I have
through.
left my book in school.
Excuse me?
I have left my book in the school.
It's okay, no problem, because I have prepared a PowerPoint presentation so everyone can see the. You are going to have the course, and I'm going to upload. It is already uploaded in Classera. The same PowerPoint slide shares that you can see now is in Classera.
Okay.
You see the screen now.
Yep.
Okay. So I need a volunteer to start reading, please.
Can I read?
Sure. Yes, please. Alaykum salam.
Unit 4. People and government. In this unit, you will learn more about the ways in which different countries are ruled and organized.
There is a problem with your mic, please, because there is noise and they cannot hear you.
Somebody's talking.
Mhm.
You will look at citizens' rights and responsibilities. You look at what makes a good leader.
Hi, teacher.
Hello. Again, another one. Please read the same slide.
Maybe teacher.
Please.
I don't
Muhammad Shawi.
enter.
Muhammad.
Unit 4, people and the government. In this unit,
Teacher, I
you
don't enter.
will learn more about the ways in which different countries are ruled and organized. You
Hold
will
on, please. The one who
find
is
out
not using
how
his mic, excuse me. The one who is not using his mic, please switch it off.
Teacher,
Switch it off.
Mute everyone.
Yes, please, Muhammad again.
to mute all, and if they will stop, you will learn more about the ways in which different countries are ruled and organized. You will find out how governments including our town, make decisions and laws. You will look at citizens' rights and responsibilities. You will look at what makes a good leader.
Excellent. So, as you see from the title of the unit, so it is people and government. So we're going to talk about governments. We're going to talk about how countries are organized, what are the different types of governments, etc. So our first lesson will be, we'll have the title Change and Development. The benchmarks of the lesson are discuss how the countries of the world have changed and developed, explain how development has led to social, political, and economic changes, and describe types of government that existed in the past. Before we start, so I want you to just think back about the ancient times. How did people, or how people used to live in the past? If you compare, for example, Saudi Arabia nowadays with Saudi Arabia 100 years ago, how did people used to live?
And horses. Mama.
Excuse me?
Teacher, can you mute everyone?
Teacher, page what?
It is page 116.
What?
116. Yeah, your social studies book.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes, please. How did the people used to live in the past?
They are in horses.
They are in what?
Horses.
Cars.
We don't have cars.
Wait a minute, please, because I need to switch off the mics because there is much noise. I don't know how to do that exactly, but it's okay, no problem. So in the past,
Teacher,
people,
click show part,
what is it?
show part,
Participants, teacher.
Only one person speaks, please.
Okay.
Teacher, go right.
Right, yeah. Right, we have here dismiss and privacy policy.
No, teacher. The one on the right of the chart.
The one with what?
On the right of the chart.
It's like
On the right of what?
two
The
people.
chart, the chart.
The right of the chart. Can you switch off your camera, please?
Teacher.
Yeah.
No. The one, you see the hangout button? The red
And
one.
the what?
Teacher,
Yeah.
yes, you see the two people down near the end call.
The two persons.
Only one person speaks, please. Muhammad, what are you saying?
Teacher, you see the two people near end call. جنبه بالضبط تحت.
The two people.
ايوه
Yes.
هذا
Yes,
الاسم.
yes.
Ah, yeah. Show participants. Yep.
Yeah, that's what we meant.
So
Now
all
you
the
see
mics are off, as you see.
And
All the
then
mics are off.
Teacher,
Ah, yeah, mute all.
Click mute.
Yes.
Anyhow, so, but I need to hear the one who is speaking. Mohammed Shawi, so has been participating. Mohammed.
Teacher, can I read after Muhammad?
Yes, Faisal Kredis. It is not a matter of reading now. I'm asking you,
Yes.
how did the people used to live in the past? Can you answer the question?
Riding horses.
Riding horses.
teacher, can I answer?
Where did they used to live exactly? Did they used to live in cities like nowadays?
No, in the
No,
desert.
In
No,
the desert.
in the desert.
In caves.
They are in continuous what? Are they stable?
In the countryside.
Yeah, in the countryside. But do they live in the same place all the time?
No.
No, they
No.
are always moving. They are migrating.
Excellent. They are always moving. What do you call the people who are moving from one place to
Migrate.
another?
Migrate.
They migrate from one place to another. So, in the ancient times, people, before migrating from one place to another, before even having farms, they used to move from one place to another in search for food and water. They are in continuous move. So,
They would
that
live beside
time
the rivers.
yeah, they settle themselves beside rivers, beside fertile lands, etc., to find what to eat and what to drink. So this era of humanity is called the era when people used to be hunters and gatherers. So they gather food and they hunt in order for them to live. So here, government have changed over time. At that time, we cannot, or we could not talk about governments. Governments appeared when the people settled themselves in cities, and then we started talking about governments. I need someone to read the next slide, please.
Me.
Who is it?
Abdulmajid.
Can you read?
Abdulmajid Kalantan. Okay.
Governments have changed over time. Thousands of
Okay.
years ago, people on the Arabian Peninsula and other parts of the world lived in nomadic groups. Most groups were hunter-gatherers. They lived on wild animals and plants which they found in their environments. Change. Over time, and possibly as a result of climate change, people began to grow crops and domestic animals. The earliest farming communities in our region were found in the Fertile Crescent, Mesopotamia, and the Nile River,
And the Nile River.
Nile Valley.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So, what is the main idea of this slide? So, what is the new idea that you got from the slide?
That the world has changed over time,
The world has changed over time.
or how people live over time.
How did they used to live thousands of years ago?
So it's different from now.
Different from now. In what way?
In many ways. Now we grow crops. Before they used to migrate a lot. Now we don't migrate that much.
Excellent. So it says over time and possibly as a result of climate changes, people began to grow crops. So in the past, they used to move from one place to another in search for food and of water. But later on, because of the change of the climate, so they settled themselves in certain areas and they started raising animals. They started farming crops, etc., or growing crops, etc. And where was the earliest farming community? In our region, of course. When we talk about the Middle East
Mesopotamia.
Region, yeah? Mesopotamia. Where exactly Mesopotamia?
Nile Valley.
No, if you talk about Mesopotamia,
Crescent.
it is not. Excuse me.
Where is Mesopotamia?
We studied that when we studied about Ibn Taymiyyah. And Abbasids, yep. So Ibn Taymiyyah was born in Mesopotamia. You remember Mesopotamia is between the Tigris and Euphrates.
Okay.
In Iraq, okay? And the Nile Valley. So these are the two first civilizations that were settled next to rivers, which is in ancient Egypt and in Mesopotamia, which is between Tigris and Euphrates.
Teacher, they also lived
Actually?
in nomadic groups.
Excuse me?
They also lived in nomadic groups.
Yeah, they live in nomadic groups. That's right. Nomadic groups are small groups with a leader. So we always find a leader in a small nomadic group. So what's the use of finding, or later on we are going to discuss this point because it is important. But first of all, we said that people, they moved from hunters and gatherers to settling themselves in farms, or they started farming, raising animals, growing crops, etc. This is what led to the growth of cities, because small groups, when they started living together, they formed big groups, or one big group, and this big group is a city. And of course, we are going to see that the city needs or necessitates the existence of different services, different important things for the city or for the people to be able to live in security and in harmony together. Someone to read the second slide, the growth of cities.
Me, teacher.
Me, teacher, can I read?
Muhammad Khalif.
The growth of city-states like Babylon or Nineveh and Ashur marked the beginning of civilization and development of language, writing, art, architecture, and political systems. In hunter-gatherer societies, people lived in small family groups. As people settled into cities, individuals began to specialize and work particular tasks. This meant that the first jobs were created. In order for many people to live together peacefully, we need rules. One of the earliest known set of laws was developed in Mesopotamia over 4,000 years ago by King Hammurabi. The laws and the punishments for disobeying them were carved on a stone pillar and displayed in public so that no one could claim they didn't know what the laws were.
Excellent. Another reading for the same slide.
Me.
Abdul Majid, you have already read. I need someone else.
Okay,
What
sorry.
is Abdullah's list? What is
Rakan Hidan, can I read?
Rakan Hidan, okay.
Okay. I read the blue.
Yeah, the whole slide, the growth of
Okay.
cities.
The growth of cities like Babylon, Ur, Nineveh, Ashur, marked the beginning of civilization and the development of language, writing, art, architecture, and political systems. In hunter-gatherer societies, people lived in small family groups. As people settled in cities, individuals began to specialize and work particular tasks. This meant that the first jobs were created. The Code of Hammurabi.
Skip that picture and go straight away to the right side.
In order for many people to live together peacefully, we need rules. One of the earliest known set of laws was developed in Mesopotamia over 4,000 years by King Hammurabi. The laws and the punishments for disobeying them were carved on a stone pillar and displayed in public so that no one could claim they didn't know what the laws were.
Excellent. So, any comments upon the slide? Someone to paraphrase what he has understood from the slide. I need someone to paraphrase what he has understood. Any volunteer? Hello? I can't hear anyone. Hello? Hello?
Hello, teacher.
Yeah, I cannot hear any one of you. So did you hear my question? I said I need someone to comment upon the slide. So what did you understand from that slide? What is the main idea here discussed?
Teacher me.
Yes, please.
That it means that the growth of cities have changed a lot of things in life.
Yeah. So, and where were the first cities that appeared in Mesopotamia? Can you give me examples of cities that appeared in this area?
Teacher, I can't hear you.
I said, can you tell me about the different or examples of different cities that appeared in the area of Mesopotamia? In fact, they are written in red. I wrote them purposefully in different color. Yes, Mohammed.
Babylon, Nineveh, and Ashur.
Yes, these are examples of cities that grew or that were settled in this area in Mesopotamia 4,000 years ago. So with the growth of cities, we can start talking, or we started talking about civilization. We started talking about writing, about art, about language, etc. Before that, so we cannot talk about that because people are in continuous move. So the only difference between hunter-gatherer societies, it means when people used to move from one place to another, and when they settled in cities. So there is one crucial point. In the past, people, they don't have any job, so they just gather food and they are in continuous move. When they settled in cities, so we started talking also about the specialized jobs like doctors, architects, teachers, etc. The settlement in cities necessitates a set of rules in order to organize this big group of people who started living together. In this vein, or in this compass, so Hammurabi, this is a well-known leader that appeared 4,000 years ago. King Hammurabi set or established a set of rules, and he carved them on a stone and placed it in the middle of the city so that no one find an excuse of not seeing them or of not obeying the laws that were stated by Hammurabi. Okay? Are you with me? Because I cannot hear anyone. Hello?
Yes, teacher.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Nice.
we hear
Please
you, we hear you.
confirm you're hearing when I ask you.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Another volunteer to read.
عبد الرحمن
Who is it?
العتيبي, can I read?
Abdurrahman Latibi, sure, yep. Yeah?
As cities grow and develop, so did trade between cities. Throughout history, rulers have tried to take control of other land and groups of people so that they could control trade routes and build wealth and influence as a result. Attempts to gain control over other lands and people often results in war and unrest. The people of Arabian Peninsula were geographically fortunate. They position along
Fortunate, yep.
their position along the world's most important trade routes means that their goods and receives services remain in demand no matter which ruler was in power. The harsh deserts along also formed a natural barrier and prevent powerful groups from invading the trade centers. Trade and the spread of ideas. As people moved from place to place to trade goods, they also brought and exchanged beliefs, cultures, inventions, and ideas.
Excellent. Someone else?
Me, Abdullah.
Abdullah's this, okay.
As cities grew and developed, so did trade between cities. Throughout history, rulers has tried to take control of other
They have
to
tried,
take
yep.
to take control of other lands and groups of people so that they could control trade routes and build wealth and influence. As a result, attempts to gain control over other lands and people often resulted in war and unrest. The people of Arabian Peninsula were
Geographically?
geographically forces. Their position along the world's most important trade routes meant that their goods and services remained in demand no matter which ruler was in power. The harsh desert also formed a natural barrier and prevented powerful groups from invading trade central.
Okay, thank you so much. Stop here first. I want to ask you.
Teacher,
Yes, please. Yeah.
Faisal Khalidi say he can't open his mic. You muted him, so he can't open his mic.
Okay.
He told
Hold
me-
on. After a while, I'm going to unmute him. Okay. So I said, I said that there is an important point here to mention, and I want you to ask a question. I want to ask you a question. So about what made the difference? Because we said that with the growth of cities, the leaders of the cities, or there must be some kind of exchange of goods, etc., between cities. These exchange of goods, which is through trade, so necessitates the control of certain trade routes. So the leaders, they try to have control over the people and over the trade routes because of what? Because of their benefit, because of the benefit of their countries. So they want to gain wealth, to gain control over everything, to get rich, to improve the economy of their countries. And this often led to wars, because this led to disputes between different countries, between different cities. However, this was not the case of the Arabian Peninsula. Why? Why it was not the case of the Arabian Peninsula? Why the Arabian Peninsula remained always far from these disputes? So it says no matter who are the ruler is, so the Arabian Peninsula remained always in a good position. Why? There were two factors that prevented the invaders from attacking the Arabian Peninsula, or that the attackers from controlling or having control over it. And there is also another natural reason that keeps it far from being reached by the invaders or by those who wants to take control over many lands.
Because
Teacher, can I try?
Excuse me?
Can I try?
Yes, please, yeah.
The harsh deserts also form the natural barrier and prevent powerful groups from invading the trade center.
Excellent. This is one reason. Because of the desert or the harsh desert that formed a natural barrier. It is like a protection, a natural protection that prevents invaders from getting closer or from invading the area. And there is another reason.
Can I answer?
Yes, please.
Their position along the world's most important trade routes meant that their goods and services remained in demand no matter which ruler was in power.
Excellent. Can you paraphrase what you have read? Say it in your own words.
That means their goods, the things that they get, like food and water, it remained. How can I say it?
Where does the Arabian Peninsula? Where is it located exactly?
In the desert.
Yeah, in the desert, but it is in a crossroad. It is at an intersection of many trade routes. That's why. So no matter who is the ruler of a certain country, so they need the Arabian Peninsula to transport their goods from one place to another. They need to pass by the Arabian Peninsula. So this is why it has remained important. And it gained from whoever ruler is ruling. So the Arabian Peninsula gained a lot because of its geographical position. Okay, so because everything passes by it up to the present time. So, and with the trade, of course, because of the exchange of goods, etc., there was another exchange or an exchange of other things, like the exchange of ideas, the exchange of beliefs, the exchange of cultures. So, and this is what we call nowadays globalization. So in the past, the exchange of ideas was through the trade, or trade was a means that led to this exchange of ideas, of cultures, beliefs, etc. But nowadays it is through movies, through the internet, through everything, through the up-to-date technologies that we have nowadays, and we discussed that in the previous chapter on the previous unit, which is unit 3, as you remember when we talked about globalization. So as people moved from place to place to trade goods, they also brought and exchanged beliefs, cultures, inventions, and ideas. Is it clear? Have I been clear so far?
Yes.
Yes, teacher.
Yes, teacher.
Okay. So, concerning credits, so I'm going to have a look. Credits. So no one is muted here. Currently, this meeting, so 28. Faisal Credits. Faisal Credits, you are not muted, but you have switched off your mic. So just click on it and I can hear you. Gerzai, are you there? Hello? I can't hear anyone now.
No, teacher,
Hello?
We can hear you.
No,
I
I'm
can hear
I'm
you.
here.
We hear you.
We hear
Nice.
you.
Teacher, I
I
mute
want to
myself.
volunteer to read the next
read.
slide.
Teacher,
Me.
Can I read?
teacher, me,
Teacher, can I read?
Can I
Salman,
read,
Abu
teacher?
Snain,
Me
teacher.
nice.
Who is it?
teacher, the next paragraph. Me, I didn't read it.
Me.
Next paragraph is trade and the spread of ideas. Okay, read it. Abdullah, please.
As people moved from place to place to trade goods, they also brought and exchanged beliefs,
Beliefs,
cultures, inversions, and ideas.
inventions, and ideas. Good. Next, please.
Teacher, can I read this?
Yeah, sure. Who is it? Who are you?
Salman Abu Snain.
Salman Abu Thnin. Okay.
Islam and the Golden Age. Within 100 years, the Islamic State grew to become the largest the world has ever seen. The time of the Abbasid rulers is known as the Golden Age of Islam. The Golden Age was a time of a peaceful development of immense achievement, which greatly influenced many forms of government which still exist today. Effective administration and decentralization.
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 Yeah.
Caliph al-Mansur recognized the administrative systems across
The one who is singing, please, can you stop doing that?
Is Mansoor.
systems used across the caliphate. Caliph al-Mahdi further refined these ideas to improve how governments administrate their regions. He also appointed judges to support the rule of the law in the caliphate. The caliphs knew it was important to decentralize government to run it effectively. So they appointed the ministers to advise them and help them run the state. The caliphs also recognized the importance of the cultivating relation with other governments. This is the basis of the modern day diplomacy.
Diplomacy. Very good. Another reading. The same slide.
Me, teacher.
Me, teacher.
Naif Nuisr.
Okay. Islam and the Golden Age. Within 100 years, the Islamic State grew to become the largest the world has ever seen. The time of the Abbasid rulers is known as the Golden Age of Islam. The Golden Age was a time of peaceful development and immense achievements, which greatly influenced many forms of government which still exist today. Effective administration and decentralization. Caliph al-Mansur reorganized the administrative systems used across the caliphate. Caliph first
Al-Mahdi.
Mahdi further refined these ideas to improve how governments administrated their
Administered.
regions. He also
You have a problem with your mic.
Hey, ولد ولد.
There's a noise.
Teacher.
Yeah.
appointed judges to support the rule of law in the caliphate.
هذا صوت مكيف قديم.
The caliph's
هشام السند. Yeah, he also appointed judges to support the rule of law in the caliphate. Yeah, the caliphs. Carry on.
The caliphs knew it was important to decentralize government to run it effectively. So they appointed ministers to advise them and help them rule the state. The caliphs also recognized the importance of cultivating relations with other governments. This is the basis of modern day diplomacy.
Diplomacy, very good. So I want to ask you about why was that era, or why was that period of the Islamic civilization called the Golden Age?
Because teacher,
why was the Abbasid? Excuse me?
I wanted to answer.
Yes, please.
Because it was the time of peaceful development and immense achievements.
Yeah, so what were the immense achievements? Can you remember from the things that we studied or that we covered in the previous chapters?
I remember one of them when I think when the Abbasid won in the battle of
Ain Jalut.
Yeah, it was an achievement or not?
These, in fact, were not the Abbasids, but these were the Mamluks. Because the Mamluks are the people who came after the fall of the Abbasids. Okay, so the Abbasids fell down in 1259, I think, or 58. So when the Mongols invaded Baghdad and when Hulagu Khan destroyed Baghdad and executed the caliphate, etc., the caliph, etc. But after them, they came the Mamluks, which were or which presented a shadow caliphate, a shadow Abbasid caliphate. But in fact, they were not Abbasids. Okay, but here I'm asking you, why was it called the Golden Age? Not because they defeated the Mongols in Ain Jalut, because these were the Mamluks. I mean, before the fall of Baghdad, before the fall of the Abbasid rulers, before the fall of the Abbasid caliphate. Why was it called a Golden Age? It lasted for 500 years and it was flourishing, etc. Because of what?
Its leaders were courageous.
Because they have
so it has something to do with the leaders. It has something to do also with education. It has something to do with their interest. Huh?
And they are strong.
So, because scholarship at that time flourished, because they gave much importance to knowledge, architecture, arts, because they encouraged trade and they controlled trade routes, etc. So, one of the things, or one of the main points that led to its flourishment or to its prosperity is because of its rulers, who were courageous, who took good decisions, who tried to organize the state in a very particular, very skillful way. So one of them is Khalif al-Mansur. So what were the main formulae, or I mean, what were the main achievements done by Khalif al-Mansur? According to the slide, of course.
He reorganized the administrative systems.
Excellent. One of them is reorganizing the administrative system. Next, what else?
Teacher, do you hear me?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, thank you.
What is the other point?
I do not hear you, Faisal.
Mansour. Mansour. Mansour
Hi.
al-Mansour.
Hello.
Hello. Can you please focus with us?
No,
So
I'm
it's
watching
that,
YouTube. I'm watching YouTube.
Khalif al-Mansour reorganized the administrative system. What else? What is the second point? The second point here, as you see it on your desktops or on your screen, so it is elaborated. I want to tell me just about the particular point, the specific thing in point 2. What did he do in the second point? He recruited what? He appointed what?
Appointed judges to support the rule of the law.
Excellent. He appointed judges to support the rule of law in the caliphate. What about the third point?
They appointed ministers to advise them, to help them run the state.
Yeah, with the appointments of ministers, what did he try to do? So he does not want to, to gain control by himself. So he wanted to decentralize the government. It means that
the government to run it effectively.
To run it effectively, in what way? Through decentralization. What's the meaning of decentralization? It means that he does not.
Centralization.
Excuse me?
I say the opposite of centralization.
Yeah, centralization is when you get everything just in one place. Decentralization is when you want to divide the powers between different parts. Okay?
Yeah.
So it is some kind of democracy at that time. The fourth point.
Okay.
Teacher, can I answer?
Yes, please.
The Khalif recognized the importance of the cultivating because it's the basis of the modern day.
So what did he do exactly? It means that he builds what? He built relationships. He built relationships with other governments, with other cities, with other countries. Why? Because it is important that you have a good relationship with other countries, because this leads to the prosperity of trade, the prosperity of policy, the prosperity of economy, etc. And this is the basis of what we call nowadays diplomacy. Abdulmajid Kalantan, where have you gone?
I'm here, teacher.
Nice. Are you following with us?
Yes.
Nice.
It was a good teacher.
Yes, please.
There is a delay. You have a delay because when you talk, there is a delay.
I don't know exactly. Maybe because of the internet.
Teacher,
Though we are all together in Saudi Arabia. I don't know why.
Because maybe teacher, when you are asking, is anyone there? It was delaying. That's why.
So after 2 minutes, our time will be over. So
when
before
I give you, I answer on the way.
Before we leave, please, we are not going to deal with this slide because time is almost over. 1 minute is left. So I'm going to upload these questions in Classera. You can have a look at them. They are much, useful for you. They will provide you with some sort of revision.
Yeah.
Okay. So these are all the words that figure in the course. You are going to fill in the blanks with the words there. Okay. And also here we have multiple choice questions. So you are going to choose the word that best completes the definition. You will find them in Classera. I wish you a good day.
Thank you, teacher.
Thank
You are
you.
welcome. And I hope that you understood the course.
You too have a good day.
Teacher.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you,
Goodbye.
teacher.
Thank you, teacher.